So thank you very much and a very, very good morning to all of you for joining us this morning. This morning is looking better because we can be happy with the AQ level coming down to 300s instead of the 400s and the 500s in Delhi. So if that's a reason to cheer, we must. And get on with our webinar on digital health, the future. This is the series 3 which we are having on digital health because we felt this has been a very, very important subject area, especially in the COVID times. And today we would like to focus on the mobile digital health services, the COVID-19 pandemic impact, and the mobile digital health roadmap. Um, we see this as a very, very important game changer in the way health services are being delivered and will continue to get delivered in the next couple of years. I am joined by our Senior Vice President, Mr. Pradeep Multani. Thank you very much, sir, for being here this morning. We are here with Mr. Levi Shapiro, founder M Health Israel from Israel. Again, a country which is very well known for technology and also for health technology. We are joined by Dr. Jitendra Sharma, Managing Director from AMTZ, a successful park, medical devices park, which is geared up the country on the medical devices manufacturing in the country. We are joined by Dr. Deep Goyal, Senior Director from Dr. B.L. Kapoor Memorial Hospital. Thank you, Dr. Goyal. I know it's a difficult time for you to take time out for a webinar. And I must thank Dr. N. Subramanian, Chair of the Health Committee of PhD-CCI and Director of Medical Services from Indraprastha Apollo Hospital, sir. So thanks very much again. I know there's a lot of things happening back at your end. Thanks again for your time and effort to join us this morning. And my special thanks also goes out to Dr. Harvinder Popley, co-chair of the Health Committee of PhD-CCI and the director of the School of Pharmaceutical Science at DPSRU. So I think time for us to get cracking on the subject without much ado. And I'd like to request our Senior Vice President, Mr. Pradeep Multani, to kindly give his presidential remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vivek. A very good morning to all. On behalf of PhD Chamber, I would like to welcome our panelists of the session. We have with us Dr. Jitendra Sharma, Managing Director, Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone, AMTZ, Mr. Levi Shapiro, Founder, M Health Israel, Dr. Gopi Chand Khilnani, Chairman, Pulmonary Critical Care and Sleep Medicines. He's supposed to join us. I hope he will. And we have with us my good friend, Dr. Deep Goyal. He's the Senior Director, Dr. B.L. Kapoor Memorial Hospital. Dr. N. Subramaniam, Chair, Health Committee, PhD, CCI, and Director, Medical Services, Indraprastha Apollo Hospitals. Dr. Harvinder Popley, Co-Chair, Health Committee, PhD, CCI, and Director, School of Pharmaceutical Science, DPSRU. And today's session moderator, Mr. Vivek Saigal, Principal Director, PhD CCI Chamber. Ladies and gentlemen, PhD CCI has been working as a catalyst for the promotion of Indian industry, trade, and entrepreneurship for the past 116 years. It is a forward-looking, proactive, and dynamic pan-India apex organization. As a partner in progress with industry and government, PhD Chamber, with a special focus on MSMEs, works at the grassroots level with strong national and international linkages for propelling progress, harmony, and integrated development of the Indian economy. Coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19, has led to a healthcare emergency globally and exposed the gaps in handling pandemics, even in the most advanced countries of the world. Digital health, as it existed pre-pandemic, needs a great level of transformation, quite a bit of which we have been seeing in the past few months. With the nature of pandemic being highly infectious and lethal in its nature, Proximity to patients by the family or the doctors and the healthcare workers has posed threat like never before. In its new avatar, digital health will require a lot more support of technologies and many more devices which can diagnose, monitor, and treat patients remotely without any adverse or reduced impact on the outcomes. The global mHealth solutions market is projected to reach US dollars 2.136 billion by 2025 from USD 50 billion in 2020. A four times growth is expected at a high CAGR of 33.3% during the forecast period of 2020 to 2025. The growing adoption of smartphones, increasing penetration of 5G networks, increasing utilization of connected devices and mHealth apps for the management of chronic diseases, rising focus on cost containment in healthcare delivery, rising focus on patient-centric healthcare delivery, and the increasing demand for home healthcare services are some of the key factors driving the greater uptake of mobile technologies among both patients and healthcare professionals. In the past, most patients were satisfied with undergoing a physical once a year and only checking in with their doctors when something went wrong. But in the digital age, patients are focusing on prevention and maintenance and demanding information about their health more frequently. As a result, healthcare companies are being proactive by investing in wearable technology devices that can provide up to date monitoring of high risk patients to determine the likelihood of a major health event. According to a recent report, the wearable medical device market is expected to reach more than US dollars 27 million by 2023, a spectacular jump from almost US dollars 8 million in 2017. Some of the most common of these devices include heart rate sensors, exercise trackers, sweat meters used for diabetes to monitor blood sugar levels, oximeters monitors the amount of oxygen carried in the blood and is often used by patients with respiratory illnesses such as COPD or asthma. Furthermore, wearable technology can also help healthcare companies save money. One study found that health apps and wearables for preventive care could save the US healthcare system close to US dollars 7 billion per year, which is crucial for the current situation wherein the coronavirus is increasing the cost of healthcare delivery by multiple times. Mobile devices and apps provide many benefits for healthcare professionals, perhaps most significantly increased access to point of care tools, which has been shown to support better clinical decision making and improve patient outcomes. The use of mobile devices by HCPs has transformed many aspects of clinical practice. Mobile devices have become commonplace in healthcare settings, leading to rapid growth in the development of medical software applications for these platforms. Numerous apps are now available to assist HCPSs with many important tasks such as information and time management, health record maintenance and assess, communications and consulting, reference and information gathering, patient management and monitoring, clinical decision making, and medical education and training. However, the lack of standards and regulations, limited guidance from physicians in selecting healthcare apps, and resistance from traditional healthcare providers are some of the key factors restraining the growth of the market. Today, we discuss about the role of mobile digital health devices during this health crisis and mobile digital health roadmap for the future exigencies. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of PhD Chamber, I once again welcome you all and look forward to your active and valuable participation in this most important session. Thank you very much and God bless everyone.
Thank you very much, Senior Vice President, for those opening remarks and the presidential address, and also guiding us for this webinar to take these discussions forward. At this point, let me thank all our annual sponsors who are flashed on the screen, and especially thank Apollo Group of Hospitals for sponsoring this particular webinar, which is brought to you by Apollo Healthcare, Indraprastha Apollo Hospitals. Thank you very much, sponsors. The format which we would like to follow for this webinar would be a quick 5 to 6 minutes opening remarks from all the panelists. And I will request my colleague, Dr. Ravi Rathod, to read out the profile before each panelist is asked to speak. Thereafter, we would like to go through the questions where we would like to spend some more time, not only the ones which have been sent by some of the attendees already to us, but also certain specific questions to the related fields of our expertise of our speakers. With this, I'd like to invite Dr. N. Subramanian for his opening remarks. And can I request Dr. Ravi Rathod to kindly read his profile? Ravi, are you there?
Hello. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Can you please go ahead by reading the profile of Dr. Subramanian?
Dr. Subramaniam is the medical director at the Apollo Hospitals, Delhi, where he joined as a senior consultant urologist in October 1995 and helped to set up the state-of-the-art Department of Urology. The Apollo Hospital is the largest healthcare group with over 72 hospitals and over 9,000 beds, providing state-of-the-art tertiary care services across 50 medical specialties. He serves as the chair of Health Committee PhD CCI and the co-chair of Health Committee FICCI and an advisory council member of People to People Healthcare Foundation. He is an active Rotarian and he has served the Rotary International as a district governor and as the assistant regional Rotary Foundation coordinator after serving the district in various capacities. He has also served as the president of the Rotary Education Foundation and as the executive vice president of the Rotary Cancer Foundation. He is a trustee of the NeuroAid and Research Foundation and the Samriddhi Foundation and is the chairman emeritus of the Rotary Delhi Central Charitable Trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. Over to you, Dr. Subramanian, for your opening remarks, please.
Namaste and advance greetings to everybody for a wonderful Diwali. And at this point in time, I think the only good wishes we all bring to each other is to remain in good health, both physically and psychologically. I mean, we all know that the COVID has really taken a toll on both the physical and psychological parameters of every individual, every community in every part of the world. However, it has brought certain benefits which have been there earlier, but which we were probably not aware of. For instance, talking about the benefits of digital health and talking about the benefits of telehealth, telemedicine, wearables, point of care testing, etc. We are all more aware of it today, though many of these have existed in the past. It's wonderful that the kind of background that our Senior Vice President Pradeep Multani gave on the wide dimensions of all that we're planning to discuss today. And Mr. Saigal for organizing this wonderful panelist selection of panel, including Dr. Jitendra Sharma, Mr. Levi Shapiro, Dr. Hilnani, Dr. Deep Goyal, and Dr. Harvinder Popli. I think it's a sheer delight. I mean, you could not have asked for a better panel. Moving forward into some basic outline thoughts on the value of mobile digital health devices. Most of us know today that the use of information and communication technologies and having the mobile versions is what has almost revolutionized what today we call the contactless healthcare. Several thousand consultations are happening through telemedicine. Several interactions in terms of education to the public and to the doctors are happening through telehealth. Several interactions on cross consultations are happening through these areas, which actually means that these facilities which we are going to enhance in the application. The human mind is not going to get confined by the corona. The human mind knows how to find ways to move forward and work on this. To give you a little background on, when you look at the role of telehealth, for instance, the first telehealth center was set up in the village called Aragonda on 24th of April in the year 2000. Well, Bill Clinton was the serving president of the United States, and Clinton visited Delhi and Aragonda at that time, where our chairman, Dr. Pratap Reddy, inaugurated the first telemedicine unit in India at that time. During the first 20 years, you did not see as much movement in the adoption of these. But over a period of time, we have extended these to available facilities in remote areas. We have had control centers, telemedicine centers in areas as at the height of Kargil and Leh and Ladakh, in remote areas where there can be an access. Similarly, we also know that WHO and CDC, when they recognized the health hazards, particularly faced by healthcare workers, they emphasized the need to promote and advocated the deployment of various telemedicine and related parameters. So that becomes a relevant factor. Now, coming to the role of the digital technology extending further into these areas, we understand that even areas which may not have an intensive care unit because of lack of technology, or who may not have the intensive care experts, tele-ICUs are a way forward. Today, we have centers where the experts sitting in any remote area can be available to consult. If you have an ICU in a remote area where the monitors will display all the parameters, the laboratory results are all online, and everything can be visualized by the expert sitting several thousands of miles away and be able to give an expert opinion, which may not have been possible in the past. The Apollo Hospitals Group, backed by our e-access tele-ICU services, which we began in 2013, has provided ICU consultations across the country to over 3,000 people in the last 3 years alone. So there is actually no limit to how much we are in a position to do. But to move forward, let us just look at some of the important mobile parameters, including the blood pressure monitors, blood glucose meters, pulse oximeters, cardiac monitors, neurological monitors, heart rate meters, peak flow meters, sleep apnea meters, multi-parameter trackers, several wearables like what our senior vice president alluded to earlier. And these wearables are really great in not only in diagnosing conditions, but help us a lot in terms of preventive and maintenance of health. So let's look at how the mobile healthcare technologies and where are they being used. They can be used in home healthcare. They are used in clinics, hospitals, diagnostic laboratories, in academic and research institutions. The main factors that you see with health in the past has been the access, the availability, the affordability. All these are significantly addressed by the digital and mobile technologies. Just to share with you, I can actually sit in my car today and on an app offer a complete full-fledged video consultation to anybody by prior appointment. All the necessary information, all the reports and everything can be uploaded. And it also has the chat facility where the patient or his attendant can subsequently send in his requests if there are any doubts, etc. So we are really enabled consultation, made it possible for people not to postpone a health consultation and yet offer the best care. Now let's look at some of the well-established differences in these bases of conditions. The access is not dependent anymore on geographical conditions. A patient sitting 1600 kilometers away can consult me just as well as a person who is based in GK2 or in Jasola. A lot of high costs of the healthcare have been brought down because of these. A large number of people do not have an access to healthcare because of where they reside, how much they know about healthcare, do they have adequate transportation, do they have attendants who would take them to and fro. But all these are addressed by our availability. Similarly, technology helps us on issues dealing with how we are utilizing sensors, where we are using remote patient monitoring products, medical devices with everything available at the touch of a button, and multiple, perhaps thousands of healthcare applications. So here is an opportunity for all of us where the healthcare distribution is wider, more standardized, and of a much higher caliber. And mobile healthcare technology also is helping us in reducing the cost, simplifying the delivery, and the applications are allowing us to not only access various results of the test, but also reference material. We have these multidisciplinary tumor boards where we discuss in detail every cancer between the surgeon, the radiation, the medical oncologist, and the pathologist. Now, I have an access to discuss that with a far larger number of colleagues and give the patient the best advice than I could have done on physical meetings because they would have been confined to a single institution. Similarly, the role of self-monitoring, as we know, is important. So the demand for self-monitoring is increasing for people with chronic disorders, breathing difficulties, diabetes, heart problems, hypertension, sleep apnea, nutritional well-being. Each of these can be effectively measured, monitored by the patient, shared with his physician, and acted accordingly with either a change in medication, a change in exercise regime, change in dietary regimes, etc. So I feel this is an opportunity for us to scale up something which we knew about, but instead of minute incremental improvements, we are going for a geometric scaling up of all these services. So I must compliment our Senior Vice President and the entire team at PhD Chamber for taking the initiative of promoting the value of digital and mobile technologies in the delivery of medical care. And I must thank you for the opportunity for being a part of this great event. Thank you and namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Subramanian. And if we would like to steal another 2 minutes, because I know you have to go, would you like to throw some light on the medical devices which you would rather long for, which you would like to see being manufactured in India or innovated in India? And we have likes of Dr. Jitinder Sharma listening, who's a stalwart in this area, to give a direction to the medical device industry to manufacture or innovate in these areas.
You see, I think very well put. Every medical device in the most compact format, in the most portable format, and in a completely digitalized format is definitely going to be the way forward. It is one way to ensure a universal access for everybody for good monitoring and good treatment. So I think Dr. Sharma, I'm sure, is already in the process of looking at which are the most beneficial out of the equipment that we have. And as such, during my entire career in medicine over the last 40 years, I have seen not only the importance of digital structure in making it available for usage at the local point, but also in terms of aggregating data, analyzing data, using the AI platforms to risk stratify all of us to various diseases, potential diseases, and areas of wellness, so that we may be going forward reducing a lot of illness, reducing a lot of the burden which will require treatment to begin with. And in the bargain, you will be surprised at the figure. In the bargain, save the world close to $45 trillion on treating diseases only arising from non-communicable diseases. So I think it's a tremendous way forward. And I think it's people like Dr. Sharma who are going to be leaders, who are going to lead us into a newer world of much more exciting and certainly much more value add healthcare provision.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Subramanian, for those inputs and guidance. Time for me to now request Mr. Levi Shapiro to understand from him as to what's happening in this space back at Israel and what could India look forward to um, in terms of getting the products, services, etc. from Israel. Mr. Shapiro. And before that, may I request Ravi to kindly read his profile quickly.
Sure, sir. Mr. Levi Shapiro is the head of digital health program at Hebrew University's Biomed MBA program. He is the founder of M Health Israel, a non-profit organization with more than 7,500 members, supporting the Israeli digital health technology community. He writes about healthcare and technology for publications, including Jerusalem Post, holds board positions with Israeli health technology startups, and provides strategic advisory to prominent US companies. In a career spanning Beijing, Tokyo, Milan, and Tel Aviv, Mr. Shapiro launched new business units, IBM, new products and services for Toyota, and a variety of technology startups. He is an investor and board member in Israeli health tech startups and formerly a general partner in an Israel-based venture capital firm. Mr. Shapiro holds a degree from Tulane, BA, Cornell Asian Studies, and MIT MBA. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you to PhD Chamber and Dr. Subramanian and Mr. Vice President. It's an honor and a pleasure, and I hope in about 5 or 6 minutes to share a different perspective. Israel is somewhere in between India and the United States, and perhaps what's happening here could be of interest. So I'd like to look at the big picture in terms of what's happening and helping to drive digital health transformation, and maybe even some examples from Israel. Thank you. So first, it's very clear that 2020 was a year that was unexpected. We have some major healthcare challenges to address, and COVID has obscured those. So in terms of where the innovation and investment is focused, it's obviously moved towards things related to COVID. And it has, for the moment, reduced the prioritization of other healthcare challenges. Namely, what you can see in this slide is the fact that healthcare accounts for more data than any other industry, and it's rather inefficiently used. I have many more slides about how inefficiently IT is being deployed, but the bottom line is 6% of all data is being absorbed by healthcare. That's 2.2 zettabytes. And yet productivity is quite low, but that's not the issue, as we all know, for 2020. Historically, this year is monumental for many reasons, including the digital health landscape. generally, some major trigger causes an absolute boom in innovation and company creation and new technology deployment. So I think Mr. Vice President mentioned the telehealth in 2000. Historically, that would have been the impact of introducing 3G. And that created a whole wave of new companies, many of which were successful, many of which went away, but a whole new sector of telemedicine. Roughly about 10 years ago, the Affordable Care Act was another trigger, a regulatory trigger. And that's what brought me into the digital health investment domain because of that sort of once in a half century transformation. The last 5 years has been really about the cloud and the ability of the cloud to create the patientless hospital. That's a term that I believe strongly, and I'm happy to explore further, but I believe we're moving to a patientless hospital. But along came in this December and early this year, the novel coronavirus, which has been a major trigger for all sorts of innovation, transformation, investment, et cetera. And so the high level is, I've been tracking digital health for a number of years, and this is by far the most investment. As of September, the amount of investment going towards early stage digital health technology companies is an all-time high. And that's coming off of 8 years of continued growth. And in particular, the telemedicine portion of digital health investment tripled between January and September. So obviously, we're in the midst of a major transformation. Here in Israel, we have our own sort of unique startup environment. More than 70 companies have brought COVID-related products to market. And this is actually a couple months ago, so the number may be higher. Wherever there's a need, a team that's agile and flexible can try to address that need. And we're seeing that here as well. Many of which have been able to access capital that historically would not have been dedicated to digital health. You're sitting in India, you may be thinking, why is this relevant? I want to share some of the ingredients, let's say, for Israel's vibrant digital health startup community, in which I'm not only an investor, but I'm also the founder of the largest digital health community for innovation in Israel, 8,000 members, and I'm teaching a whole program at Hebrew University. So, perhaps some of the aspects of what we experience in Israel can be applied to your immediate environment, not all of India, but maybe your city, or use your own hospital or health system or your own organization as a base to build out some of the similar types of ingredients. 3 items. One, we do have access to R&D capital. And so there is a very valuable role for government and the public sector to encourage access to R&D capital and then de-risk co-investment. And so there's many programs available, both from the government, from foundations, from health systems, from donors, in which basic R&D can be funded, and that creates a whole pool of available innovations. Secondly, this is quite unique to our own environment. Israel quite accidentally has had universal health records for 2.5 decades. So what we've seen, and this is what I want to point out in your ecosystem, for about the last 3 or 4 years, we have found mechanisms for startup companies to license that historical trove of data and integrate that into their own solutions. That means as of last year, and I'm sure that number is higher, but as of last year, 91% of the funded digital health companies in Israel had an AI component. And the AI is coming from this huge repository of data that they can license with millions and millions of patient records. And finally, and this is also something that I think some of you can undertake in your own environments, basically the access to free beta sites. In Israel, it's quite easy to conduct a proof of concept and build prototypes and pilots at almost zero cost. And therefore, we can have real world evidence at zero cost prior to looking for global markets, which I think is very important for establishing credibility. And I think these are also replicable in your own local ecosystem, some of these aspects. But we do have our own challenges here. Most of the Israeli companies are creating solutions to solve American healthcare problems. And the market being far away, a lot of Israeli companies are struggling with building sustainable businesses. So in terms of the proportion of companies that are earning 20 million or more in annual revenue, it's still quite low. And that's another reason why I think there's room for collaboration with Indian companies as it relates to the Indian market, because you know your own market dynamics so much better than we would. I'm going to finish with just a couple of examples, companies I'm personally involved with. And I think all of these are a combination of interesting technologies, but more importantly, business model innovation. And so what I want the group to think about is not only how do we transform healthcare and improve healthcare with cool technologies, but what kind of business model innovation can we apply? Because often that's really the difference. So here's a company that I've been involved with since they were two founders coming out of the Army. Basically, they've brought AI to medical coding. Medical coding in the United States has about 260,000 people doing that task. It's manual entry, aligning ICD-10 and other codes in order for reimbursement, in order for payment. And it's highly inefficient. There's a high rate of error. And so very simply, AI as a differentiator is not really unique, but AI to improve business processes. And all of us, I'm sure, know how small the margins are, especially during COVID. So this is a tool that sort of reinforces. My point is the business model innovation, reinforce the existing processes through technology. Secondly, I want to talk about 6/6. The company was actually recently, a couple months ago, acquired. This is an ophthalmology exam done with your mobile phone or your laptop. It's medical grade, and the technology had nothing to do with healthcare, but was applied to healthcare. What I want to get across to anyone thinking about the role of technology within the health system, they very carefully avoided fighting and combating the existing processes of the health system. Instead of competing with ophthalmologists, 6/6 provides this software package to online retailers who, if you're buying a pair of glasses, can now also offer a fully medical grade ophthalmology exam. So no fighting, no lawsuits. And as a result, they were actually acquired by a very prominent online retailer. I mentioned the ability to access a huge trove of data. This is a company, Zebra Medical. I believe they are participating in India. They license the entire library of medical imaging data from the Israeli Ministry of Health. But what do I want to get across? The business model. Instead of selling a very expensive imaging machine like GE or Philips, Zebra charges $1 for each image that is used. So basically the appification of the product, I think is very interesting. It eliminates barriers to adoption. Again, as you encounter technology companies, the important thing is not just the technology, but also their business model innovation. Augmedics is an augmented reality surgical decision support tool that creates a, basically allows the spinal surgeon to maintain their line of vision without having to turn away and look at a screen. Also, the decision support, the machine learning and artificial intelligence is integrated into the process. Again, this isn't AI will replace your doctor. This is AI will support and augment our healthcare professionals. And as a result, they've had investment from Johnson & Johnson. They've become a training standard. I was involved with them early. I'm also involved with another company where I'm on the board that's doing something similar. Two more examples. Dr. Subramanian mentioned the importance of mental health at this moment. So Ginger is a mental health tool. The technology is very interesting. Passively, it listens to any changes in voice inflection to determine if there may be some kind of mental health episode. But more importantly, from a business model innovation perspective, Ginger is targeting employers. Employers are about 60% of all insurance plans in the United States. By targeting insurance and creating a B2B platform, they've been very successful. For $185 monthly subscription, an employee and their family have access to a team of mental health professionals. And so it's a win-win. Lastly, as I said from the very beginning, and this is my final point about the patientless hospital, this is a FDA-approved medical grade telehealth suite of products connected to a monthly service. So the monthly service ensures that it's a very attractive business. And we're moving to the patientless hospital. They're doing it through a partnership with one of their investors, the largest pharmacy chain in the country. So these are some of the things we're seeing in Israel. I think some of this can be replicated I think on a local level in your own environment. And I appreciate, again, PhD Chamber for the kind invitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Shapiro, for a very interesting presentation. And I could see a very, very focused understanding and viewing coming from all of us, and especially Dr. Deep Goyal, looking at it very interestingly. So that actually takes me over to you, Dr. Goyal. Thank you once again for sparing your time off the patients and out of the hospital. Please do share with us on your thoughts, as well as whatever you did see in Mr. Shapiro's presentation.
Thank you, Vivek. At the outset, let me thank PhD Chamber of Commerce for inviting me. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. I just need to request Ravi to read out your profile for a minute or so, please, if you permit.
That's fine. Don't worry. I will talk about myself. Don't worry. Don't bother, Ravi. So I am a robotic surgeon, a gastrointestinal surgeon, and my main area of interest is GI oncology and all complex surgeries in the abdomen. And I work in a hospital in New Delhi, in an upmarket hospital, tertiary care hospital, and I'm largely trained in India. But I did go spend some time, couple of years in England and US for my training of robotic and laparoscopic surgery. So thank you very much for inviting me here. And it was a very informative lecture, Mr. Shapiro. And I have a very, very keen interest in digital health. And the first thing is there a need of digital health, especially in our country? Answer is yes. Are we doing enough? Answer is no. Is the technology available? Yes and no. I think the main usefulness of artificial intelligence and digital health in our country, in a country like India, is manifolds. And I would say the most important part is to look after the rural area. That is where the infrastructure and the medical personnel are not available. And that is where these are the people who really will be benefited. And primary, secondary, and preventive health, if we are able to look after these three segments in rural area, then I think we have done 90% of the job. Yes, as Dr. Subramanian was saying, that critical care, home care, these are another area where you can obviously apply digital health. What I find in my country is still the problematic is a mental block of using the digital health. In spite of knowing, in spite of thousands of apps available, that inertia of using technology is what is, I think, blocking the progress of this fantastic tool. What we have done recently is that in my hometown, we have opened up a hybrid center. So there is a physical center where we are using technology, where we are using these applications, where we are using the devices. A patient has to walk in, and a trained nurse will handhold the patient to connect that particular patient to a specialist in Delhi. So the patient finds it very convenient that somebody is there to handhold him, and he or she doesn't have to go onto the mobile on her own. And that mental block which we face. So it's an interface, and I think we have just started a couple of months back, and we think we are doing reasonably well. And I think that is the future in this country for some time before this mental block goes away. And I recently saw a very interesting device from Israel. Mr. Shapiro may be aware of that. It's a very thin sheet of made of some plastic material, and which we put under the mattress in the hospital bed, and it tells you blood pressure, it tells you pulse, temperature, oxygen saturation, breathing pattern on a monitor which is at the nursing station. So you don't have to physically keep going to the patient's room to measure the blood pressure and to measure other things. So that's an amazing device which I recently saw. And we are also using, Dr. Shapiro, some of the devices which you showed in our center, and the stethoscope, digital stethoscope being one of them. So it's very interesting. A doctor sitting in Delhi is able to hear the heart sounds of a patient in our center, which is around 200 kilometers away. And artificial intelligence, as I said, is another thing which is a game changer, and lot needs to be done on the grassroots level for us to make it useful for a common person. Well, people who are aware, who use this technology, it's okay. But for people who have a mobile and has a 4G connection, they should be able to use artificial intelligence. And we are unfortunately still quite far away from that use. But that is something which is going to change the life. So imagine an app where you are able to feed your information, and that device is able to tell you possible diseases which you are suffering from and the first level test which you should do. And once you enter the result of those first level tests, you can go further. I think that is the kind of simplification we require for a country like India, and for that matter, anywhere in the world. I mean, even in the United States of America, this is what is required at this point of time. Then I think a word about, we have to move to an era where we talk about personalized treatment of a disease to a particular patient. We can't be now slave to protocols which are used for everybody. We need to move to an era where we say, for this particular person, this particular thing is going to work, not the protocol which we wrote for everybody, which is a general protocol. And I think that is very much possible with the help of these devices, which are artificial intelligence based. Augmented reality, again, is a very important issue. And today, when we do robotic surgery, we are able to feed the scans of our patients into the robot, and they guide us during the surgery. And there are a lot of inbuilt features in the robot which help us causing harm to the patient. So I think that is another area. The diagram which Mr. Shapiro showed is very, very pertinent, that you can, with the help of augmented reality, you can recall the scans, you can take the help of the scans and devices to make sure. I think that's pretty much I wanted to say. And the future is very, very exciting. But in our country, we need a lot of research still to undergo to see what is suiting our environment and how we can make life of a common man in a village where there is no specialist available, make his life easy and make sure that we are able to look after his primary and secondary health need, so he does not require a quaternary care for even smaller things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Goyal. Thank you for your in-depth remarks, as well as the focus on the technologies which you've been using, not only at BLK, but also I know you've been spearheading the digital health and telehealth massively in the country today, and you are at the forefront of a lot of these technologies. So thank you very much, and I'll come back to you with some more questions a little later. And at this point of time, I must acknowledge the chat of Dr. Kamal Krishna. And thank you very much, Dr. Kamal, for saying that you'd like to take the outcomes and discussions being held here to Dr. Poonam Khetarpal Singh, who is the Regional Director of WHO's Southeastern region, usually known as WHO CRO. And I must say that she's also really commended the presentation which has been made and talked about this as a very happy and joyful learning. And thanks for your long-lived PhD chamber remark. Thank you so much. With that, I'd like to get on to Dr. Jitendra Sharma. You heard Dr. Deep Goyal saying, does India need digital health? Yes. Are we doing enough? No. And a lot of yes and no's, and then whatever Mr. Shapiro had to talk about, what is happening back in Israel. I can vouch for the fact that our AMTZ is no short of an Israel in the making, so far as digital health technologies are concerned. And before I ask Dr. Sharma to speak, can I request Ravi to read out his profile, please?
Yes, sir. Sure. Dr. Jitendra Sharma is a healthcare technologist and specializes in applications of technology and innovations in health products and manufacturing sector.
Maybe I can take the hint from Dr. Deep Goyal and
Right, sir.
say a few words about myself and save 4 or 5 minutes. Only a surgeon knows the value of time. And Dr. Deep Goyal actually has guided us. So I am Dr. Jitendra Sharma. I head the, as founder, managing director of the AMTZ, which is, as Mr. Sehgal mentioned, it's like a mini Israel in India. It's a city of 8 miles, specializing in medical devices, building, manufacturing, R&D. We have now 87 partners within the campus and growing. So we are a mini city of medtech. We are, you can see factories behind me, 3D printing centers, testing centers, and so it's a medical devices city. Yeah, and I also acknowledge the presence of my colleagues, Dr. Harvinder, Dr. Deep, Mr. Levy, of course, Mr. Sehgal and Mr. Multani, and all the participants. Let me thank PhD Chamber for picking up this topic of mobile digital health, because mobile digital health is not a product, it's a process. And many products become part of this process. Now, mobile digital health is a process that leads to a desired outcome. Multiple products and services can actually fit in as input, and so long as process is great, the outcome is great, right? And I'm looking at mobile digital health from like a fiber, like a spectrum through which multiple products, multiple services can go in. And so long as process is well defined, well architected, homogeneous, the outcomes are what we desire. Now, what goes in as input are primarily in 3 bands. Band 1 are the traditional and evolving telemedicine platforms, the consultations, the National Teleradiology Program, Mr. Sehgal would remember, I designed that while I was in the Ministry of Health. The National CT Scan Program, the Analytics Program, the National Digital Health Mission, and so on. This is within the spectrum of mobile health, the traditional and evolving telemedicine programs is the one basket. This basket has again multiple providers, multiple operators, multiple services. It could be, as Dr. Deep Goyal mentioned, a village to a city connectivity. It could be analytics of radiology images, which Mr. Levy mentioned, or $1 analytics, and so on. Right? Then you have the second basket, which is wearables. Can I wear a ECG patch while driving? Can I wear a smartwatch? Can I wear a health band? Can I wear a band which gives pulse oximetry in infants so that pneumonia is detected early? Because these are major burden of diseases that we encounter. So anything that is wearable and getting socialized as a lifestyle product is the second basket. We all are getting exposed, our children, our family members are using them. But this basket is primarily a basket which is very different from traditional telemedicine, where you consult a doctor. These health bands and wearables can sometimes give you the detail. Sometimes they can be configured to give a doctor a detail. But in the genesis, they are very different from traditional telemedicine. And the third is the penetration of mobile health in medical equipment. Right from a non-invasive temperature meter that these days we are getting used to at airports and hotels, to robotic surgery systems. And there is only one robotic surgery system maker in the world. We all know that, Intuitive Surgical Da Vinci. The second in the world is getting manufactured right behind me in that yellow building, if you can see, by a company called RoboSurge, which has 7 robotic arms, highly evolved system. Perhaps the animal trials are successful now. We are going into batch production. These are one of the few evolving products we are bringing in. With that, we are bringing in India's first and world's third superconducting magnet for MRI. Of course, ventilators, RT-PCR kits, many other things are already happening as we speak. But the integration of mobile health in these devices is the third form of mobile health. So as input in mobile health, we have these 3 streams: the traditional telemedicine, the wearables, and the integration of digitalization in traditional medical equipment. It could be an IoT-enabled dialysis machine, which we also manufacture in my zone. It could be trends of SpO2 and ECG coming on a central nursing console station in a ward or in an ICU. But these are all integrations of data into traditional medical equipment. These medical equipment existed, some of them before data came in. Some of them are getting bettered with the data coming in. Some of them are messing up the data that's coming in. These are machines, so they perform in multiple ways, and we all seek to improve them. This is the input. And the mobile health, mHealth, is the band, the spectrum. What is the output? That's the question I want to place to the audience as well as to the panelists here. The output is safe, effective delivery of service. Now, how do we achieve that? Because to achieve that, one, you need a seamless flow of data, irrespective of in which band I am. So my smartwatch has to work 24/7, otherwise it's not a smartwatch. My robotic surgery system has to be analytically powerful every time I use it, not sometimes and not on some days, which means as an output, we are looking at seamless flow of data in a well-configured architecture. 2, we are looking at convergence of data. So while a smartwatch in Delhi can give a brilliant data, and these days you can actually integrate even social distancing with the smartwatch, while a teleradiology image done in BL Kapoor Hospital can be excellent, can that teleradiology image done by, for example, a $1 image analytics by Mr. Levy's team, can that image be used by Sarita Nursing Home in Muzaffarnagar? No. The answer is no. So we are building increasingly islands of excellence which are not speaking to each other, which is the second problem of mHealth. Are we converging? Because for converging, you need more than a solution. You need more than large number of solutions. You need a platform. So these brilliant models in India and globally on mHealth are each one of them can be actually understood as a progressive smart train. And we are bringing out more and more bullet trains and speed trains and great trains, but we are not building enough railway stations, enough platforms on which all trains can come and get parked. Multiple people can get in and multiple people can get out. And that's the problem of mHealth today. We are not building railway platforms. We are only building trains and our own individual tracks. And the third challenge that this throws up is then, are we collectively useful? The answer is yes and no. We are useful to some extent so that so long as we are sitting in our train running on our track. But the moment a patient who has to go to some other train comes into our train, he cannot speak to his hospital or she cannot speak to his hospital. And that's why you have angioplasties reports that are done in Mumbai not being accepted even in Delhi, because these two hospitals' architectures don't speak to each other. And therefore, I am coming to the solution that we are bringing now. Because it's great to have trains, but if you don't have a station, where will the passengers change their trains while they commute long distances? And health is a very long distance journey. And therefore, these three inputs, the variables, the traditional telemedicine platforms and solutions, and the equipment, each configured to electronic health record systems in multiple hospitals and multiple providers, lead us to a point. What do we do when our beneficiaries, the patients, go to a hospital, as Dr. Deep said, in rural India, in a hospital which does not have any electronic medical records? What do we do? Because this hospital, which is say Umesh private nursing home or Sarita nursing home, may not feel the need to invest on an electronic medical record. And so long as they don't feel a need, you cannot have a network of architecture completed. You cannot have all the solutions converging. So what we have done is that we have conceptualized something called EMRA, Electronic Medical Records Alliance of India. What this alliance is, it is like Paytm, a gateway, a UPI for electronic medical records. This UPI of electronic medical records has two parts. One is the provider's part and one is the service user's part. And I'll just take 30 seconds more to explain this. The provider's part of EMRA allows any electronic medical record provider, telemedicine provider, and solutions or smart health providers to get hooked on, so long as they fulfill two conditions. One, they give a free basket and a paid basket. Free basket can actually have minimum number of characteristics, which is eligibility to come on EMRA. They have to provide, for example, an OPD registration fee. They have to provide lab integration. They have to provide certain things which are not very advanced features, but very critical features for a hospital, big or small, to have patients registered with their basic information data on us. Has to be free, which means any nursing home who cannot afford an electronic medical record can still have a freely downloadable open source in electronic medical record system, which is not state of the art, but is critical enough, covering the dimensions critical enough so that those hospitals can also come on a railway platform called electronic medical records. Two, these providers can give advanced features like storage, analytics, integration with PACS, and so on, which are advanced features on a cost basis. And that cost is settled between the hospital and the provider. But this cost has to be paid on cost per bed per month basis, so that the hospitals are not forced to shell millions and billions of dollars just to buy an electronic medical record system with 500 computers in their hospital. Which means, like an electricity, you can actually have a bare minimum free basket of electronic medical records. And if you want advanced features, you can pay for it. And EMRA allows you, like policybazaar.com, compare the features of paid baskets across providers and choose what you want to buy as a hospital on a per month basis, so that you can pay for it like an electricity bill on per bed per month basis. These are two eligibilities for any electronic medical record providers to come on EMRA, which is nothing but a UPI, a gateway. The second is on the hospital side. A hospital can choose to store data in its laptops, in its local servers, which is free for themselves. But if they want to host, they want a provider to host the record, the provider has to house it, and they can charge the hospital a certain cost which they declare upfront, again on per bed per month basis. Now what we have done is we have created a platform, not a train. Multiple trains at multiple speeds to multiple destinations can get parked on this platform, so that in such a way that the platform ticket is free, which means any hospital can go on the platform free of cost with a minimum free basket. And for the paid basket, for the extension of journeys, they can pay on mileage basis, on per mile, on per month, per bed basis, like biomedical waste. What this would do is that hospitals that Dr. Deep mentioned about, somebody in Mehboob Nagar or Muzaffar Nagar or Murshidabad, which is a 20-30 bedded nursing home, does not feel the need of an electronic medical record, can also come on electronic medical record system and can be hooked on to the gigantic systems which can pay for value-based medical record system. And therefore, what we are imagining the digital India in healthcare to be is to allow wearable segment, which is the smart health that's coming in society and community, the traditional digital health, which is the telemedicine system, and the third one, which is IoT and equipment and everything getting integrated with digital health, doing their own innovative businesses, products and services, coming into a bandwidth of EMRA, such that the interoperability between them and between providers is established for the best benefit of the individual patients. Now, these individual patients can allow hospitals to store their record, which they are supposed to store by law anyway, in their local systems. It can be stored in the provider's servers at a cost to the hospital, and the patient can get the digital identification number in the form of a digital memory dongle, a digital account, which the National Digital Health Mission has already talked about. So I'm very happy to see that so many providers from multiple countries are on the platform of PhD chambers, and I would just extend a free invitation for them, both as providers of services, which are our suppliers of solutions, and users of services, which are our hospitals, to use EMRA once it is launched, so that the providers can have a large market and the users can have a choice of having a free basket even if they don't want to invest. And for the paid basket, they don't over-invest and they pay for things like digital health on a routine basis, on an operational mode, on a monthly basis, merging all the data, allowing all the patients who are getting in touch with the health system through multiple providers to at least use what they have at any location they want, at any point of time they want, at any point of time they want. And the laboratories at AMTZ, the infrastructure and machinery that we are producing at AMTZ, which are all IoT enabled, right from robotic surgery system to dialysis machine, they will all be on EMRA compliant mode. And EMRA compliance is not something new. It is the same data and metadata standards that India follows. It is the same HL7 that providers follow. It is the same DICOM compatibility that hospitals seek. So we have not done anything new. We have just allowed multiple people doing multiple beautiful things to be coming on a shareable platform like a payment gateway, like a UPI. With that, over to you, Mr. Sehgal. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to the audience and my esteemed colleagues on the panel for giving a patient hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Indeed, very, very insightful and very interesting, aspects brought out by you in terms of not only the problem areas, but as much as the solutions to be provided and are being provided, in fact. And I think I must congratulate you on this platform, which I'm sure will go a long way in bringing technologies wherein a lot of trains can actually come and park and offload and take on more patients or passengers for that matter. I think very, very interesting. And I can see Mr. Shapiro smiling there on that and seeing, how would he want his technologies probably also coming onto a platform to serve the wider humanity. Now, I think it's time for me to listen to the academia expert, which we have within Dr. Harvinder Popley. Dr. Popley, I mean, before I ask you to speak, there is a lot of things which are expected out of educational institutions to try and test and show the research and development some kind of direction. We'd love to hear from you on what is your perspective on that. And before that, Ravi, can you please read out Dr. Popley's profile?
Sure, sir. Dr. Harvinder Popley is the Director of School of Pharmaceutical Science at Delhi Pharmaceutical Science and Research Institute. It's a state university of Government of NCT of Delhi. She is also the Director of DIPSRO Innovation and Incubation Foundation. She is the ex-director Ranbaxy Research Laboratories, wherein she was the part of senior management for strategy, global collaborations, acquisitions, and licensing. She has a professional accomplishment of over 30 years of experience in R&D, academics, and industry in the field of pharmaceuticals. Dr. Popley has been awarded with prestigious...
Thank you. I think that's enough, Ravi.
Right. Thank you, ma'am.
Right. Thank you. I thought that my job is only to thank this other, so I will summarize a bit of it before we take in the questions. So you will be taking the questions later on, Dr. Vivek, or...
Yes. We'll take the questions, though a lot of questions have been answered, but we'll still take up the questions post your remarks, please.
Okay. So thank you. First of all, on behalf of PhD CCI, I would like to thank our Senior Vice President, Mr. Pradeep Multani, for his presidential address, and also, the welcoming the panelists and delegates. He has set up the platform, where he has given a guidelines that what is happening basically in the industry, in terms of growth, and specifically, set up that the projected market of mHealth, which is 213.6 and growing, still at the rate of 33% CAGR for mHealth solutions. So there is there is definitely a lot of need that we have to look into that where we are today, and that is how we have a battery of our panelists who would set up the platform and discussed. And I would like to thank Dr. N. Subramaniam, the Chairman Health Committee, PhD Chamber, for his continuous efforts with the committee's work, and also sharing some of the insight in the hospitals like Apollo hospitals. He mentioned about the telehealth, and he mentioned about the importance, and specifically, in the COVID-19 pandemic, what is the impact of this mHealth and how they are utilizing these services. I would also like to thank our today's panelist, and specifically, this Mr. Levi Shaprio, which is the founder of mHealth Israel, Dr. Deep Goyal, Senior Director, Dr. B.L. Kapoor Memorial Hospital, for sparing their valuable time, and also Dr. Jitendra Sharma, Managing Director, Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone AMTZ, for sharing their views with the industry. It was, very, very interesting that what they have shared. Specifically, when we are talking about the Israel, and it was very, very nice to know that in the Hebrew University in Israel, he has discussed about different waves, like wave 1 of 2003 in the telemedicine, and when he talked about Obamacare, and now the AI and big database. So with my experience, earlier working with a company, and now being in academic institutes, as you were saying, we had been working with a lot of startups. So he mentioned about these startups. So some of these startups, as he has mentioned, is coming up with the new ideas. But very interestingly, told also by the Dr. Jitendra Sharma, that what are the gaps basically when you are taking up from a prototype to a commercial market, and then usage. So that is very interesting and very insightful for the entire audience, because I've seen that number of students also being participating in this mHealth, and two of my PhD students also working in this area of the AI. And it was very interesting. Then when we were doing survey with a lot of companies, what is specifically in a pharmaceutical companies or in a medical device company, that how much of AI they are using. And we have found that still there is a lot of scope, specifically when we talk about India. So that is how we are seeing the growth which is going to come. If I see the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, they released the guidance note for the telehealth platforms, and this is to deliver the essential medicine services, and the WHO guidelines on the digital intervention for a health system is basically for strengthening and recognizing. Also, the mHealth is effective means to deliver and providing the the compliance and the distance. But a very important fact which Dr. Deep Goyal has also been mentioned, and very beautifully brought about by Dr. Jitendra Sharma, is that the mHealth training package might be required, which is also incidentally mentioned in the the guidelines, because there are so many devices, there are so many of the bands, basically the 2 or 3 categories. One you're using for a health, and another's to monitor and to get the health access. So and the people are not using that. How do you use this kind of a technology? And today morning itself also, one of my relatives who has been again suffering from a COVID, all these digital help, or what we can call it as home health, has been provided. But when the patient is of 80 years old, they are not able to even, they are so confused to tell their own parameters, that what is the oximeter reading, and what is their HR reading, what is their BP reading. So that also becomes comes sometimes a challenge in some of the even the urban cities, where there is access to the mobile phones, there is access to data, there are literate population. And if we are saying 70% of our populations in a rural area, then definitely we have to we have to overcome this. And it is very nice to know that what Dr. Deep has mentioned, that the center which they have started, and I strongly believe that that has been required. We can have n number of the technology, but the technology, if it is usable and user friendly, that will be in a long run will be very, very beneficial. And as I mentioned, that the WHO is also talking about that the training package for the use of devices, the data practices, is required. But as number of devices are coming, and we have seen also when we were screening, a lot of startup ideas. We have seen there are a lot of now lack of standards and the regulations, and there is a limited guidance, as mentioned by our senior vice president also, for the health apps. Basically, you're using for the BP, for the high blood pressures, a P flow, or a sleep apnea. These all devices you had been using, but there is not much awareness about these things. So we have all heard these stalwarts of the industry today on their crisp and very important observations. And I would like to propose a hearty vote of thanks also to all our dignitaries for sharing their thoughts and experience, and for a very interesting and very thought-provoking views in the mobile digital health roadmap. I would also like to thank Indraprastha Apollo Hospital for their support and sponsoring the webinar. Many countries, like including the United States, they are challenged to provide adequate healthcare, and difficulties include the physical distance between doctors and patients, too, with the very few skilled healthcare professionals, and the extraordinary complexity between the insular medical systems and the cost of healthcare equipment and infrastructure. And in addition, the current epidemic of chronic illness in both developed and developing economies. It illustrates the need for the innovative, efficient, and very technology supported interventions. Definitely, we have all witnessed today that the mobile digital health devices, they offer the ability, to connect with the patients and with the doctors, to caregivers and loved ones, and enable the timely health monitoring, which suggests there is a improved patient engagement and better health outcomes. So mobile technology, can aid in increasing efficiencies by connecting the patients to their providers virtually anywhere. And mobile health applications and services, they are becoming an essential tool in extending our healthcare resources around the world. So with these words, I would like to once again thank one and all for joining today, and hope that everyone is benefited by the knowledge. And we have a esteemed panelist over here. So Dr. Vivek Sehgal, you can take few of the questions, and they can clarify their dots. But one very important thing what Dr. Jitendra Sharma has told, and it was also, I also been learned that the technology which you had been working into, and there is a need. And slowly, as we were the best in the IT at some time, so I am sure that these data analytics and these things which will soon see that will become a reality. Like today we are all juggling with that how the medical records or a medical coding, but soon the technology is going to be very I mean, definitely there is a lot of scope. Maybe a couple of years before, when I was being associated with the WHO, I had seen that in a tribal area, they had also found out the solutions. They were saying that the children for a vaccinations, they couldn't find that how their parents will tell that these are been vaccinated or not been vaccinated. So they have found out that they have made a small pendant, which the usually in a rural area in India, the people wear with a black thread. So this pendant has all the data about the vaccination record. So they don't have to ask that their mother that which are the vaccines which has been given, and they don't even ask for the vaccinations. So that we can say that of even a decade before, there was a solutions that how this medical record is being accessed. So similarly, I'm sure that with the advancement of our technology, will this digital health, and specifically the pandemic has brought that kind of opportunity, that where we can uh, fast track the efforts of M Health. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Popley, for summing up and also giving the details of these beautiful presentations. Though a lot of questions got answered, I have just two quick questions, one addressed to Dr. Goyal. Dr. Goyal, we had a question related to a center of excellence for digital health. Now, since you've been talking about and spearheading a lot of telehealth and other areas, US FDA had cleared one for the US. So do you see the possibility of having a center for excellence? And we have partners like AMTZ or Israel there. So do you see we could see this as an outcome in the near future, if not far in the future?
I'm sure that is what is ultimate aim, that I think we should be able to create centers of excellence. As Dr. Jitendra Sharma very rightly said, that unless our systems, the devices are not going to speak to each other, it is going to be a far-fetched dream. But I'm sure once we develop a technology where the systems and the devices can speak to each other, I'm sure it is possible. And I think we will have to define what do we mean by center of excellence, which may mean different things for different people. And for a rural area, it may mean something else. And for a quaternary care hospital, it may mean something else. But yes, I think it is very much possible.
Great, thank you. And I would like to, suggest as an, give a suggestion here that, PhD can play a critical role in creating the center of excellence and actually motivate and mobilize the different stakeholders. And I would request all of you, to kindly lead us, guide us on creating the center of excellence, which we can contribute to the country, and the patient safety. Yes, Dr. Sharma.
No, you always have this habit of saying something which is most important, Mr. Sehgal. I'm jealous of this habit sometimes, but what you are saying is right. Unless somebody takes the ownership of doing the job, all of us talking and imagining that the job will not get the job done. Someone has to institutionally take this responsibility. You are always an institutional person, so I'm not surprised by this question. What I wanted to compliment you on is the Ministry of Electronics and IT has actually established, sanctioned and supported a Center of Excellence on Medical Electronics at AMTZ. We have already set it up. EMRA is part of one of the activities of the center, which aims to create a railway platform for hundreds of trains. And all the providers of health IT services attached to PhD chambers, all the service providers of healthcare in the bandwidth that people like Dr. Harvinder and Dr. Deep, Dr. Subramaniam enjoy, we would be happy to engage them as partners. There are no costs associated with it because we are only creating a bandwidth. And this Center of Excellence on Medical Electronics that's already working at AMTZ would be happy to associate formally with PhD chambers in this project along with all your partners.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. And you almost equally surprised me by giving me a solution to the idea which I may come about with, that, it's either exists or it's almost there, So I think all that should make things happen much faster back here. The last question which I have for the afternoon is for Mr. Shapiro. There is a question related to, the clinical trials. So the question goes like this. It's from one of our delegates, that are we considering the integration of usage of digital health services with clinical trials and disease surveillance studies? Would you like to take it on, please?
We didn't have a choice because of COVID. Everything moved digital. So the transformation has been profound, and essentially that's now the standard rather than the exception. The technology was there. I think the comment was made perhaps by Mr. Sharma that it's all about process. So the transformation to new processes was accelerated, and I think will become the norms. I'm curious what others on the panel have to say about this.
Can I make a comment, Vivek?
Please do.
Mr. Shapiro, I completely agree. It was a compulsion rather than a choice. And but unfortunately, in India, it is not picked up that well as we would have imagined, actually. Not even in metropolitan cities where technology is not a problem and the availability of 4G is not a problem. But whatever is happening is probably because of the compulsion of COVID. My question to you is that since you people have already, as you said, that you are somewhere between India and United States of America, how can we take help from you in enhancing and fastening our processes and not reinventing the same wheel again, and take your help and, you know, probably take a long jump?
So India has many competitive advantages, and Israel has its own very unique set of advantages. So I believe the key is to find complementary areas of mutual benefit. So I'll give you an example. There is a team of Indian entrepreneurs. R&D sits in Bangalore, and the CEO and some of his commercial team are in Silicon Valley, and I'm involved as a board member to try to help them. It's a, in any case, it's a digital surgical tool. So Israel as an intermediary is very good at the 0 to 1, which means we access capital. We have a lot of capital. You saw that slide about $6.5 billion raised for digital health. It's a lot relative to a country of only 8 million people. And we also have very close integration with the United States. So for example, organizations, entities that have an interest in entering the US, Israel can be a nice intermediary for different reasons. So, you know, that center of excellence idea, I think the competitive advantage of India is the creation of, including the company in which I'm involved, very, very high quality technologies that are looking for global markets. And so this is the area where I think Israel can be an efficient partner to help these great technologies with evidence from India become category leaders on a global scale. I think the future of health is in India. I mean, I swear I lecture about this. I really believe this. But it may be localized. You know, you may, it's a lot to ask the whole country to sort of coordinate. But in a particular region with a particularly motivated player, I think you can create mini ecosystems that are, you know, incredibly powerful.
Also, I think the advantage we have is that number of patients which require treatment, and also number of specialists which are available, unfortunately not in the rural area, but they are available in metropolitan cities. So how do we sort of mix and match them? And as you said, I think that's the, if somebody, you know, can mix and match them, then that's and get the technology in between. So that's going to be a winning point, and center of excellence, in my opinion, is not very difficult to create. And as I said, that we need to define the center of excellence for different models. It may be different for rural area, and it may be different for quaternary healthcare system.
Yeah.
I see a lot of opportunity in rural health in our country.
Absolutely. And but that's just the most, because of COVID, I think we are all kind of remote at this moment. Yeah. You know, yeah. It's a huge, you know, we're at the beginning of the next curve, is my opinion. And India, I think, has the most to gain. The transformation to a fully insured population, you know, the aggregate number of healthcare professionals is enormous, but the per capita number, especially in the provinces, telehealth and remote health is essential in order to sort of achieve those goals. So I'm very bullish.
Yeah,
please.
Another problem which I think in our country is that, you know, in our medical education, there are no partners, there are no technology partners. So just to give you an idea, I had an idea about an instrument, a surgical instrument. I discussed with our IIT professor. He liked the idea, but he showed me inability that, you know, I don't think I can take it further. So, you know, I didn't know what to do, which is not the case in developed countries, and, you know, like in US and Israel, I'm sure, where there is a lot of integrated subjects which are taught during your MBBS, during your medical education, and you are taught how to integrate and partner with the technology people. That is something which is missing, and I think that may be one of the solutions which Jitendra can provide. Since they are in an institution where a lot of cutting edge technology and innovations are happening, I think that is another area, Jitendra, where you can partner with a lot of health experts. I'm sure you're already doing it.
Right. No, I'm sure we can actually take up those kind of ideas also into the COE and see the, because I know there's a fantastic incubation center back at AMTZ, and whatever technologies, and I'm sure Dr. Popley can help us there, with a lot of these new startups whom they keep grooming at their incubation center as well. And I think we can have an integrated approach with technology help back from Israel. I think it can be a great mix, and I can see this as a very, very important outcome of today's webinar, which is tangible and can bring, something on the ground. So it's been a very, very interesting discussion. I have Dr. Kamal Krishna Banik raising his hand and Mr. Ramesh Verma. I would like to do justice to by allowing them to speak. Kindly keep your questions very short. I have another raised hand. Okay, so let me request Dr. Kamal Krishna to speak. So you can unmute yourself, Dr. Kamal Krishna. Can the IT team enable him to talk? Okay, can we have Mr. Ramesh Verma speak till such time? Mr. Ramesh Verma, can you speak, please? Speak up. You are unmuted.
Yeah.
Please introduce yourself and give us your remark or question, whatever you have.
Yeah, I'm Ramesh Verma. I am a researcher and with a technology background of about 50 years, ex-IIT. We are currently working on AI solutions and also algorithmic solutions besides the machine learning solutions, particularly in the area of healthcare. One challenge which I faced over the last 6 months when we started this exercise, particularly in relation to COVID, is that it is impossible to get access to data. And here, on one hand, the country has a lot of data, but that data is not useful in transforming it into gold, because there is two problems. One is that it is not curated and structured, and second problem is the problem of privacy. So I think Mr. Levy very correctly mentioned the availability of data in Israel being a driver for the growth of industry. Because unless we go through from the POC to the prototype testing stage and clinical trials, before clinical trials, we would not be able to take this project forward. And in the last 6 months, I've seen this happening with 3 of the projects which we tried to do. So that is a stumbling block which I think the government needs to enable with a lot of data. And probably the first exercise the AI people could do is to how to structure that data, unstructured data, and make it useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verma. Your point is well taken. We are aware of this, and I heard this before too. And we are trying to pursue the government and figure out what we can do about sharing of the data without intruding upon the privacy part of it. But I guess the platforms which Dr. Sharma talked about could also enable a lot of that, and can help developers like you to see the way forward. Can I request Dr. Kamal Krishna to come in now before we close the program? Dr. Kamal Krishna, you can unmute yourself. I think there is a problem there. Okay, I think we will have to leave it at that. And at the end of the Q&A and the webinar, I'd like to profusely thank Mr. Levi Shapiro for joining us all the way from Israel. Dr. Jitendra Sharma, thank you very much for joining us all the way from Vizag. And Dr. Harvinder Popli, thank you very much and wish you a very, very early recovery. You're looking bright, and I'm sure you look brighter in another 2-3 days once your this thing is over. Thank you very much, our Senior Vice President, Mr. Pradeep Multani, and a hearty thanks to Dr. Subramanian and Dr. Deep Goyal. It's been a very, very interesting discussion, and unlike a lot of webinars, this morning I found this to be very, very informative and very precise and almost finishing on time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a nice day ahead, and we work together on the COE. That's a commitment which we take back from here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.